Hello, everybody. In 2016, Donald Trump became the 45th President of the United States of America, a fact which I'm sure you're familiar with. But how did he win the election? That's what this video is about. We'll go over what I think caused people to vote for Trump, why Trump didn't live up to expectations, in my view, and how you could actually address those problems. I know there will be some conservatives watching. Greetings! Maybe you found this video because it has MAGA in the title, or maybe one of your friends or relatives sent it to you. I hope you will stick with us to the end. I will show you a new way of looking at history. I know Marxism sounds scary, but it's actually pretty tame once you have a look at it. Personally, I am far left, and so is much of my audience. Actually, so far left that I think that Democrats are pretty much the same as Republicans, so don't worry, I will not try to make you vote for Joe. I think he's trash. I won't dwell on the classical accusations of racism either. The focus is on hard economic facts and Marxism. That being said, let's go. In 2015, Donald J. Trump announced his campaign to run for President of the United States of America. He wasn't taken seriously by, well, anyone. After all, he looked like an insane talk show host going for a publicity stunt, but he began holding speeches and gaining support. In my eyes, Trump's campaign was based around two main goals: build a wall and make America great again. Trump rose in the polls more and more. He produced many scandals, which is why he was on the news a lot, which got him more followers. This can be seen as a result of sensationalist news or smart campaign management, depending on how you want to see it. This is where I briefly explain the election process to my non-American viewers. In the USA, there are two real parties, Democrats and Republicans. We'll focus on the Republicans now because that's the party Trump is in. If you want to be elected for a US president, you need the support of one of those parties. You can run as an independent candidate, but without a party to give you lots of money for ads, nobody will vote for you. And these parties need to figure out who their candidate will be. For this, they hold pre-elections. Usually, there are many candidates from each party. They hold speeches, declare their positions, and then the people vote on who it should be. Sometimes these votes are only for party members, and sometimes they're for everyone. It depends on the party and the state. This is more of an opinion poll than an election. The real official candidate of each party is then selected at the party conventions, the Republican National Convention or the Democratic National Convention. At these conventions, the votes from earlier have influence, but the party leadership has the final say. And in 2016, there were multiple candidates running for the nomination as Republican candidate. Trump was not very likely to receive it because he started picking fights with pretty much everyone in the Republican Party. But in what I consider to be his smartest move, he said if he didn't get the nomination, he would run as an independent candidate. About 20% of Republicans wanted him as a candidate at the time, so having him and another Republican running against a united Democratic Party would have definitely split the vote and handed the win to the opposition. So Trump pretty much forced himself as the Republican candidate. Then the 2016 election came and he was elected for president, crucially with the support of low population states in the Midwest, which have more power in the American election system. This will be important later. So that's the story. That's how Trump became president. But why? Why did he win? Why not Hillary? Okay, I can think of many reasons for why not Hillary, but you know what I mean. Why did the people decide to vote for him? There are different explanations. The most basic one, and the one that is most common, especially on BreadTube, is a cultural one. The story goes that for the past years there have been improvements in the rights of minorities, especially LGBT people, and that now the people who used to be the oppressors are fighting back and wish to remove those rights again. And this can be a valid analysis, at least if you take more time to flesh it out than I did. But I don't want to focus on that. Enough has been said about how Trump supporters are just bigots. I agree, some probably are. And I would say many of Trump's quotes and slogans definitely invited racist people. But I think it would be a mistake to characterize all Trump voters as racist. After all, if America had so many racists as to sway an election, then how did Obama get elected like 4 years before that? Maybe 20% of Americans are racist, maybe it's 30 or 40%, but they definitely aren't the ones who swayed the election. No. To me, Trump voters fall into two groups, best represented by his two slogans, Make America Great Again and Build a Wall. I'm going to say that I think that the slogan "Build a Wall" was definitely intended as a hostile message towards foreigners, as well as an attempt to make sure racists would vote for Trump. But to me, that's not all Trump voters, because to me, the big part are represented by that other slogan, "Make America Great Again." And that is what we will examine. What about MAGA was so attractive? And we will not be concerned with the wall or Trump's immigration policies. I personally think they were overtly racist, and if you voted for Trump purely because you wish to keep out brown people, then this video won't convince you. You may leave. But if you voted for Trump because you felt like he could give America greatness again, then I urge you to continue watching. Let's have a look at that slogan. Make America Great Again. It's a very ambiguous one. Nobody is quite sure what it means, and I know because I went on r/AskAConservative and asked. They couldn't even agree on when America was great, or why it stopped being great. The most common time period people named for America being great was the 1950s and 60s, and the reason they give seems compelling enough. After all, in the 50s, life was a lot better, provided you were a white cishet man. The jobs paid well, the economy was doing great, everyone was optimistic about the future, and there are many people who long for this time. Of course, there are many things different in this time. For example, at the time, women didn't exactly have rights, like they couldn't take out a loan or get a job, which gave men incredible power over their wives. And the same was true for black people who had to put up with even worse things. I'm sure you've heard about it. So it's curious that people wish we had situations like those again. To say that America was great at that time and that we should make it like that again. There are many ways we can interpret that. We could say it's sexist white men who want to take power over the other groups again. But I think that wouldn't be true to most people's feelings. Let's pull out the Marxism now, shall we? Historical materialism, as a theory, was put forth by Marxists in order to explain historical events through the lens of economics and the class struggle. If you haven't heard about the class struggle, don't worry, it's not important for us right now. Historical materialism can be summed up as saying that if we look at history and historical developments, we should especially look at the economy. The reason we need a historical lens or framework like this is to make sense of all the facts. There are so many things going on all the time that you need some story or system to make sense of them. In philosophy, that would be called an ideology, but in history, there is no fixed term for it. Different frameworks are used for different things, and I believe that in this case, a Marxist one will work best. So, historical materialism attempts to make sense of things with economics. So, for example, it would say that the First World War broke out in large part because of colonialist and economic rivalries between Germany and the United Kingdom, as well as a threat to the German Empire posed by the economically growing Russian Empire, which led to a bloody war. There are many other frameworks, for example a religious one, that would attempt to explain history as primarily driven by religion. This works well if you focus on the interaction between religions like the Crusades, but it kind of drops the ball when it comes to anything else like World War I. And the reason Marxists believe in historical materialism is because they see the economy as a key part. Yes, maybe a ruler will truly want to go to war to spread their religion, or maybe they just want to conquer more farmland for their people for economic reasons. In the end, the economy dictates most things about our lives. And if the economy is not doing well, then we cannot spread religion or whatever other frameworks you may use. And in the end, the economy is the core. And I believe that we can do an analysis of Trump's election using that. Or, to be more precise, an analysis of the last 70 years of American history. Here I go. After the Second World War, the American economy was incredibly well off. It was the only big developed economy not to be destroyed in the war, and when other countries started rebuilding, they did it using materials bought in the USA. There was economic prosperity, and as labor was in demand, the jobs paid well. This economic prosperity was mainly caused by the end of the war and the technological developments that came with it. The war needed many tanks, and after the war, these factories switched to producing cars. Suddenly everyone could afford a car. All the inventions of the war times were changed into new consumer products, which raised the standards of living and needed new workers for the production process. This is the same story all around the world. In Germany, the Wirtschaftswunder. In France, the Le Trait Glorieux, In Korea, the miracle of the Han River. In the UK, the economy was going through a golden age despite the empire committing Sudoku at the same time. All around the world, the economies were prospering from the rebuilding and new technology. Every country has a different explanation for this. In West Germany, the socialist economy was credited with the boom. In Britain, the conservative government, which had continued welfare policy, was seen as the reason. In France, state-controlled capitalism was credited, and in the United States, uncontrolled capitalism was given the credit. As you can tell, the global economy was doing well. But it can't stay that way forever, can it? The economy stopped growing 5% each year. It slowed down. This was in the 70s and 80s. The boom did not last, the economic growth stopped. Well, it didn't really stop. The economy became bigger and made more money every year. But the average person didn't see any of that. The real wage has not increased since the 70s, while the total wealth has gotten more and more. So there is a sense of lost potential among the average person, a feeling that we could be doing better, a feeling that life used to be better. After all, in the 50s, 60s and 70s, everyone could afford a home. And nowadays you have to go into decades worth of debt just to graduate from university. The chance that a millennial or Gen Z person will ever own a home is close to 0% because there isn't enough affordable housing on the market. There are enough houses, but they won't offer them for cheaper. This has complicated reasons, but this causes anxiety among the young population. Nothing is secure in this economy. But let's not focus on the problems of the youth. After all, middle-aged people were more likely to vote for Trump. So, why was that? Well, two of the crucial regions that voted for Trump were the Appalachian and the Midwest. For the non-Americans, those are regions in the US, not American states. Over the last decades, coal mining as a profession has taken a beating. The employment in the coal industry has gone down pretty much every year. And this is a disaster for many small communities that rely on this industry. And those regions happen to be the Midwest and Appalachia. The same can be true for oil drilling. It's gone down, which can have devastating economic effects. And in the Midwest, many farmers can barely survive anymore because they can barely sell their products. And that is because, due to globalization, these farms, which need to uphold the living standards of their owners, need to compete with Central and South American farms which have way lower labor costs. Millions of American workers constantly need to be afraid of their jobs being outsourced to China or other places. And those who don't still need to somehow compete with the Chinese-made products. Nearly everyone working in the American industry has to be worried about their future nowadays. And in steps Donald Trump, a seemingly successful businessman, and he announces that he will help them. He will make the country great again. He will make coal mining great again. He will impose tariffs on China and Latin America to help the American workers. He will move the industry back to America. He is their guy. He will make America great again. So I think if you put it that way, and don't get dissuaded by Trump's occasional racism, then the choice to vote for Trump suddenly makes sense. He's making promises of saving millions of jobs and of defending his country. So I can't really fault people for voting for him in some cases. That's the Marxist story. The American working class was uncertain and scared, so they voted for someone who said he would fix that. But we haven't yet explained why there was so much uncertainty. Why the coal miners became unemployed. Why the production moved to China. Why the farmers now need to compete with Central America. Let's look into that. And let's see how Trump explained and attempted to fix those problems. And then, just for fun, I'll tell you how I would explain and solve those things. Let's start with the question. What caused coal miners to lose their jobs? Coal mining used to employ 800,000 people in the US. In 2016 it was at 1/10 of that. So what happened? If you listen to Trump, or most conservatives for that matter, the blame lies with his political opposition, the Democrats. They want to protect the environment too much and hurt coal miners in their progress. And of course, Trump promptly repealed all Obama-era environmental protection laws he could. He also made sure to cut taxes on coal bosses. And how well did it work? Well, the Bureau of Labor Statistics actually keeps track of that. Every month they have a look at how many people work in coal mining. So let's just look at how many people were employed in the coal industry in the US since Trump became president. That's it. It arguably didn't go up at all. If you want to showcase a positive trend here, you'd need to ignore the data at the start and at the end. The reduction at the start was a late effect of other factors I'll get into later, and the one at the end was because of COVID. Really, Trump did not make coal bigger again. He arguably stopped the drop, but there are barely 40,000 people employed there anymore. So I'm not sure if investing that much political capital was necessary. But his policies definitely made coal bosses richer, because he cut taxes on them. This is known as trickle-down economics. The idea is that giving money to the rich or cutting their taxes will make them invest more money, which creates new jobs and products, which raises standards of living. There are many wealthy people who believe that we should cut their taxes, but there isn't much evidence to show that that actually works. Maybe I'll make a video about trickle-down economics in the future. For now, I'll just say that Trump's tax cuts had no noticeable effect on how many coal miners have a job. So please note that if Hillary Clinton had won and cared about miners, then she would have probably done the same. That's because both Democrats and Republicans believe in neoliberalism, which is an ideology which, among others, promotes trickle-down economics. But let's now ignore the Republican or even Democrat explanation and look at how I would explain what happened and how to fix it. This is the employment in the coal industry between 1985 and 2020. What caused that? Why so down? Well, I wouldn't blame Obama or liberals with their evil anti-coal bias. I would say the employment went down because they didn't need that many employees. Because of modern mining techniques like mountaintop removal mining, they can mine off a whole mountain with a dozen people. That much output used to take hundreds in underground mining. Modern technology is taking these jobs. And that's why Trump's plan didn't work. Yes, theoretically tax cuts could help the bosses afford new employees, but practically they just bought new machinery to make their old employees more productive. It's in their rational self-interest. But what to do about it? What could work to protect these jobs? Well, the reason employees get replaced with machines is because it's more profitable for the boss and the shareholders, even if it's worse for the miners. So, my suggestion would be nothing less than democracy. I demand that the position of the boss be elected by their employees. That way, a boss wouldn't dare to fire half of the workers. This would solve surprisingly many problems. For example, an elected boss would not outsource to China or commit fraud against their employees. And if they got a machine that produces the same profit with half the workers, then how about everyone gets paid the same and has to work half as much? Why fire half of the workers? That's not going to be popular. It's better for the majority to work less rather than fire half for the profit of a boss. So my suggestion is simply workplace democracy. And it's the same story for most things. No business would ever outsource to China if the workers had a say in it. So that fixes the anxiety of being outsourced. Let's talk about the farmers. I mentioned that they are hurt by having to compete with foreign production. Trump attempted to fix this by imposing a tariff, but that just increased the food prices, which is a no-go. This goes back to him thinking that globalization hurts America and is bad. And in this case, that's definitely true. But why was the economy globalized? Well, profit drive, pure and simple. Rich people thought they could make more money by importing cheap products and exploiting cheap labor in other countries. So they lobbied and did that. But how to fix that? I would say that this is clearly a problem caused by an unrelenting profit drive and that it is inherent to capitalism. You could go isolationist and end foreign trade. You could use price fixing on the global market, as some libertarian just said, an aneurysm. There are many things you could do if you looked beyond capitalism. But crucially, you won't get any of them from Trump, because his rich friends would dissuade him of that. But you won't hear it from Biden or Sanders or any American politician I'm aware of either. The issue is that most of these problems facing modern America, from uncertainty in the economy to way too high housing prices, are caused by the profit drive of the free market. And American politicians won't do anything about that. Maybe because they genuinely think that giving a business to its workers would be bad. Or maybe because they're still scared of the evil communists because of Cold War propaganda. I would just like to tell you that there are solutions to these problems, but Trump doesn't offer them, and neither does Biden. I am sympathetic to your struggle. I recognize that many things are bad, but I also recognize that they could be better. And that's the goal of the left, to make the economy run for the majority, not the minority. So, dear one conservative who's still watching, maybe consider some left-leaning solutions in the future. After all, the right-wing ones don't seem to have worked. You probably wonder how anything would work in my suggested leftist world. I have a video on that. Click in the top right corner to see one possible socialist world, or alternatively watch my Ideology Explained videos to get some more detailed ideas. And that was my video. We used historical materialism to explain how Trump was elected, why the American people voted for him, what the problems were, why Trump isn't capable of solving them, and why I believe that capitalism is the root cause. And if you're a conservative, this was probably a lot to take in. Sorry about that. But at least you now know where those socialists are coming from. See ya! Why not leave a like and a subscribe to see more like this? Thanks to my Patreons for giving me money, and an extra special thanks to Dordoise, The Doctor, Darius the Bird, Noah, Herdington Gerdington, Jet with 2 T's, Klaus Trop, Morally Conflicted Tortoise, Spear, Tyler Dang, Generkis77 and Aaron J. Patton for your generous donations.